was that here is a chance to potentially see what mindful culture looks like. Yeah, for most of us, that's like a hypothetical question. What would mindful culture look like? What would it look like? What does it look like in outside of a monastery? When a group of people working on something together all have, as Luke was talking about, some foundational practice. And not that the meditation practice is mandatory here, because it's not at all. It's totally opt-in. But it's, it's sort of a pretty consistent presence. And so for me, what excited me, one was the idea of mindful culture. The other was the idea of getting to see what happens over time. There's a lot of interventions that, or programs or classes that people can go to. But I had this question, it's what happens when we do this in a group over time? And I think we're getting to see in interesting ways what does happen. So I'll just share a few reflections on what interests me about this process. Well, one is, in this startup environment, it's an extremely volatile environment. Right? A lot of ups and downs, a lot of uncertainty, and a lot of pressure. You could say those things that's true of any aspect of life, probably. Just being a human has those dimensions in it, which is partly why its teachings are not just relevant in startups. But I think under these conditions, it's so useful to have some way of working with our own body and mind. Right? How do we find some even modest measure of inner stillness in the midst of a rapidly changing environment? Even if it's not anything particularly stressful, how do we find some balance, some sense of inner balance in the midst of this unfolding, which we call life? And that's something that meditative practices are really designed to cultivate. Right? We have these kind of structures, these shapes that we can put ourselves into and cultivate this new, kind of like a way. Right? It's not really even a technique. It's a new way of being in the world. Right? And I think even on the most modest level, there is a palpable transition that happens from being kind of totally run by our minds. As those of you who have tried to meditate know, you close your eyes and you realize, wow, how do I turn this thing on? And then people have the idea, meditation is about trying to turn it off. Try that for a while and fail miserably and make yourself more stressed out doing it. And that's good. That's learning. Oh, that doesn't work. What else can I try? And so